The first poet that I'd like to introduce to everyone is Stephen Nashef. Stephen Nashef is a high school physics teacher. He is also an excellent poet, and he's a translator. I'll just tell you real quickly why I'm particularly supportive of his work. I see two. The first reason was one of his poems called Tennis Balls, which I had to pick. I had to bring forward because it was such a fresh idea. The original motivating force was exceptional. Sometimes you get pieces that just weigh more. Also, and it's harder to hear this, but he has been able to step outside the sort of formal boundaries of poetry and deal with a thing, and create a thing as a text, which to many of us sounds freer and easier, but is in fact harder. Because when you're working with no boundaries, you make your own boundaries. So let me just introduce Stephen Nashef to come read some poems.
Thank you. I'm going to read 3 poems tonight. I don't think we've got that much time, so I won't do much talking. This first one here is called Knowledge. Fat clods jump to their feet and the pretty girls swarm around them. A reclusive pilot takes a moment to have a peek of his plane from the outside. His pilot's license is temporarily revoked. He never quite gets the full thing back. Puddles too large to be are all we have right now. If you cup your hands like this, think concave but without the flooded to our elbows. Why, oh why did I let you start the conversation? Roy Perfume Corduroy's been banging on about a swift revolution for what feels like weeks, but the scientists are telling me angular momentum must be conserved. And they seem reasonable. Round of teeth, petite, immigrants for girlfriends. By God, some have boyfriends, and you say the world hasn't been spinning? Well, the news is momentum's not real, and at the quantum level, individuals are sporadic creatures, keep choking back the tears, and they woo each other in other languages as if it didn't even matter. If sex is about displays of power, then what the hell is knowing the capital of Bulgaria about? Alcoholic aftershave probably has something to do with it. After the calamitous disaster, someone found a dildo in the rubble, mistook it for a mushroom. The mycologists flocked in, primed and naked. It took a child with the guts to point out the reality. I was that child. I was that child. I was. Well, I wasn't. But the soldiers have been singing for weeks, "Oh, Sardica, what is it to know your name, but not to have entered your sweet little lanes?" A matron sternly stares from the hollow of her eyebuds. Doesn't understand the Bulgarian soldiers that they, wanking in trenches, leaping out to buy their pig of the locals, settling into the trench slime, and after come shy to clutch close a postcard of home, that they are, in fact, connection, suggestion, did I agree, did I consent? Always, never. The matron does sometimes sympathize, but I would have done, had it not been for the fact that I'm memorizing each Chinese character, its meaning, its history, its geometry. It's a sordid business, but I won't apologize, Sophia. Not today. This next one is the tennis balls one. Tennis balls. I have always tried to treat the students as equals. It is preferable, obviously, that the students follow the course of action I have decided because it is something that interests them. When this is not the case, though, and at times I regret to say it seems inevitable, I would like the students to do what I want them to do out of an appreciation of me as an individual, as opposed to a fear of my retribution as an authority. The archaeology of control in the latter is too precarious. It begs revolt. I later found out that the boy had thought he was going to die the whole time. The bodies had been floating face down in the river through the window in their hundreds, and he had naturally assumed he was going to be one of them. He had said strange things. He spoke of captivity as if it was some tangible object. I should have told him that it was all a joke and that the bodies were actually sacks of tennis balls. I loosened the ropes tying his hands, and his irises quivered through a depth of fluid, the meniscus of which seemed unfit to hold. But he turned away and ran before I saw a tear drop. I spoke to Felicity. Are you happy? I want too many things, she said. She had asked me the same question the day before, but my answer had been clumsy. What do you want to do today? She uncrossed her legs, then crossed them the same way and picked up a cigarette. Why did you let the boy go? I wanted to, I lied. Smoke was coming out the side of her mouth. My more authoritarian fellow teachers and I achieve the same superficial results, obedience. But I enjoy a more radical tyranny. What I say the students want to do, even the interior is policed. This is, as they say, progress. Felicity, I am happy, I think. Felicity was folding up like a newspaper, turning toward the wall. I poked her thigh, but she was either asleep or faking it. It was 2 p.m. and about 38 degrees. I was in love with a man, and the man was me. So here's the last one. This is called Roy. Let's say Roy. I read it quite recently, and I wrote it because I wanted to use a simile of the word selfie, almost just to annoy my fellow friends who are poets, because I think they would not be happy about that in a poem. But anyway, here goes. It's called Roy. There's rather too much at stake, it seems, Roy said, looking over his calendar, which stretched magnanimously into the 2080s. Marie had never been so excited to see him at the Champagne Bar in Manchester, for which they'd won tickets in a raffle, and they dressed up, but the waiter, Jeremiah, knew their sort as soon as they stepped in. He said, "Every moment passes intestate, and the best of us are like Dickensian lawyers, forging coherence from the scraps." It was clear he didn't mean Marie and Roy. Carbon dioxide steamed from the bottle top with gay enthusiasm, like an average and likeable graduate striding confidently, mortarboard in hand, into oblivion. Roy is greying at the temple. The sky wangled its way through the lamppost glare with all the panache of a well-brought selfie. It had been years since Roy had stood up and made a phone call to the Prime Minister. "I want a say in the economy. I want the opportunity to acquire the ability to have a say." He was of the best of us and was duly executed. Roy turned back to the woman opposite him. She'd aged, changed her name, and her DNA was all out of whack, but Roy still loved him. "Tim," he pleaded, but it was already the future, and the best of us had all turned our backs on politics, preferring instead to write beautiful love poems to wonderful people to whom they were not intended. Sarah, mainly. Roy gave up and went home and dug out an old copy of Rimbaud, but couldn't find the new misfortunes line, so cried a little and fell asleep. The next day, out in the Beijing sun, he felt much better. He thought back to artful flirtations, ambiguities tenderly preserved, and Spanish pronouns. The buildings he walked past exposed their breeze blocks, and he hadn't seen Richie for years. The leaves stuck firmly to their twigs, like the season required of them. "Oh, Sarah, was it Nicaragua, drunk in the hammock under the sweaty night sky? The best of us are separated after 3 weeks and distraught for 3 days in a lifetime. Malheur vieux," and a continued anticipation of rhyme.
Made the right choice, didn't it? Yeah.